Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be talking about a phone that really nobody has talked about that much since its release, and it's kind of sad too because this was a kind of good phone, and the whole lineup of this phone, really means a lot to me, which is technically the Nexus line. And with a phone like the Google Pixel 4, when it came out, I don't want to say it flopped right away, but I think a lot of what this phone line meant was really kind of like brought down upon, especially with the competitors. Now, when this phone was released, the whole Pixel, I would say even the Pixel 1, it was pretty much known as the phone with the best camera at that time in the marketplace. And when you compared it to basically all the other phone manufacturers, even up until last year, the cameras, they have more camera sensors and stuff, but the quality of these lenses were really, really good. And then Google kind of switched it on us and really, they said some really weird things, they did some really weird things, and since then, I think the whole Pixel lineup was kind of watered down in a way, and rightfully so maybe, and maybe not. They did some really, really weird things with this specific phone, which I really wish they didn't, but it is what it is. But it's one thing where a phone manufacturer kind of brings out a phone, they're like, okay, this is what our lineup means, and then they totally take it away from us. Basically, even back in the day with Samsung, when they brought in the whole removable back, removable batteries, and removable storage, and then switched it on us with the Galaxy S6, I think that's what Google kind of did with the Pixel 4. That's why I'm really excited about the Pixel 5, or even the Pixel 4a whenever that comes out. But now this thing was released a couple months ago, and what's really, really cool is these things are selling for noticeably cheaper than once they first released for. I think when they first released, they were selling for $799 for this specific base model. Now you can actually pick one of these up for $499, and they're even listed on Amazon for that price. So if you want to pick one of these up, links will be down below. They'll be for the cheapest prices that I found on Amazon. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, looking on the front of the Google Pixel 4, we have a 5.7-inch 1080p panel, and in reality, I've always said this, I don't really have anything wrong or against 1080p panels. I don't even see that big of a difference between 1440p and 1080p sometimes. But what's really, really cool about this panel is that, first of all, there's a really weird kind of bezel design. I mean, they have like a chin at the top, like quite a bit of bezel at the top, but then towards the bottom and everything is a little bit more centered out. And I think this looks, 50 billion times better than the Pixel 3 XL, but especially when you compare it to today's market and everything that's going on right now, it is a little weird. It's also a little top heavy in my opinion, but that's kind of besides the point. I would say, in terms of the way it looks in the front, it definitely doesn't look like the greatest and most, ever, like, best looking phone right now, but it definitely doesn't look like a cheap phone either. Like, it looks like a good phone, I would say. You do have a really cool feature of having that 90 Hz refresh rate, which is really, really awesome. That's something that not a lot of phones have, or they're going to be getting this year. We have 120 Hz on the Galaxy S20, but on a broad scale, there's still not a lot of phones in the marketplace that have any advancements in the refresh rate market. So for sure, this is one of those phones, which is, I think it's pretty cool at the end of the day. On the bottom, you have a USB Type-C port as well as the speakers. On the back, you have this like matte textured glass back kind of thing. I really never even understand what it was. It's like plasticky, and I like scratching it because it feels pretty good. And then you have that infamous camera setup. So you have a dual camera setup, which I'll get into in a second. But this is probably one of the more interesting aspects of this specific device. They really, I wouldn't say they dropped the ball, but it's like they didn't hype it up, and they didn't really like deliver as much as they might have hyped it up, especially throughout the years. But again, it is what it is. We're not going to go back and tell them what to do now, but overall, the way the phone feels in the hand and everything, really, it doesn't feel like a cheap phone. The buttons don't feel that good though. Like, I felt buttons on like the 11 Pro and the S20 and S10, and those buttons feel really good. When you click them on this thing, they feel pretty cheap, but really everything else on the phone, I mean, it doesn't feel like the best feeling phone in the world, but it also doesn't feel like the cheapest phone. The whole chassis of the phone feels like it's pretty much made out of plastic too. So when they were selling this phone, they were selling it for like, I think $799 or $899 or something like that. And then they realized nobody was buying them, and now they dropped down the prices to $499 and I think $599 for the base models of the Pixel 4 and 4 XL. And I've already reviewed the 4 XL, and I kind of like that phone. But with this one, I don't know, man. It's just kind of in that weird spot where they could have done more. And, with the company the size of Google, and I'm not too sure which manufacturer made this one, but I feel like they could have done more at the end of the day. But in terms of design, it's not really its strong suit. It does have that IP68 dust and water resistance, so you go up to 1.5 meters of water for 30 minutes. And, I honestly think if they kind of went the approach as like the Pixel 2 XL, I personally love the design of that phone. I think that's one of the best designed phones ever. It's so symmetrical, looks so nice. And if they kind of just even did that on this, I would have been perfectly fine with it, to be honest. But I would have probably complained about them copying that design, but still, I think it would have been less heat if they were to do something like that than if they did this, and they did this at the end of the day. So in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it. Now, hitting on the software, this is probably its biggest asset for sure, and it's not only the, stock software that it has straight from Google, but it's also, the longevity of the software. It's first in line for all the updates. And I was speaking about the Pixel 2 XL, that phone that came out in 2017, I was able to go and, install the Android 11 beta on it, and even my Pixel 2, I installed those betas on it. So I'm on a version of Android that really, no other phone from 2017 is really going to be using, maybe besides the OnePlus phone, and I already have it on those, which is pretty insane. So this Pixel 4, it's going to be lasting for many years when it comes down to the Android standpoint. Of course, iOS is still better when it comes down to updates, but this is going to be lasting for several more years. And to give you some perspective, the Pixel 1, the first Pixel that came out in 2016, just got unsupported recently. So it was supported for a very long time, then it just got unsupported. So keep that in mind. This thing is going to be getting updates for quite a while, and that's a really, really good thing. So again, one of its highlights for sure, you can pick up this phone now and still get not only full-on OS updates, but monthly patches and monthly updates as well with those Pixel updates, which is an extremely awesome thing. And I've reviewed it once on my second channel. I might start doing them again, I don't really remember, but for sure at the end of the day, the whole entire software lifecycle support of this phone is one of its highlights. And even when it's done getting software, you can always go and custom ROM it, which is another plus point for this phone. So in terms of the software aspects, that pretty much covers it. It gets a thumbs up for me in my books. Now, hitting on the performance side of things, this thing has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 chipset, octa-core CPU, and Adreno 640 GPU, and 2 different models, and both those models have 6 gigs of RAM, which I'm really happy they increased the RAM, but I wish they increased the storage, because 64 gigs for that base model, okay, whatever, a lot of phone manufacturers, including Apple, are still doing that, but at least those other manufacturers have top tier models with 512 gigs. I'm sure there's a lot of people out in the marketplace who want to get a phone like this, but they need more than 128 gigs. Now, I think Google is doing this on purpose so that they can, sell more Google Drive space and, people to fill up their Google Photos and stuff like that, which Google Photos is free, but you can't upload files on that. So that's why I think they're trying to, make people spend more money on Google Drive, which, I guess is okay. But what I would tell you though is, in terms of the performance of this phone, I think it's pretty smooth. I don't think it's a bad phone or slow phone. I think it's a pretty good performing phone still. I think a lot of people want to complain on everything about this phone, but I think the performance is pretty good for the most part. Because it is stock Android, it doesn't really need 12 gigs of RAM to get you from point A to point B. You just need the base level of RAM for a majority of tasks that you're doing, and I think you're pretty much set. So in terms of the performance, I think it gets you from point A to point B for sure, and point Z if you need to. Maybe the only gripe, and this isn't even a gripe, but maybe if you're multitasking with a ton of apps, heavy apps, then maybe you'll start seeing some bigger differences. But honestly, it's really not that big of a deal. I had a pretty good time with it. So for sure, at the end of the day, I think the Google Pixel 4 is a pretty good performing phone. It's not a bad, performing phone at all. So I think that pretty much covers it in terms of the performance. Now, hitting on the camera, like I said, this thing has a dual camera setup on the back, 12.2 megapixel wide angle lens, and then a 16 megapixel telephoto lens, which we still don't know why they picked a telephoto over ultra wide. I think a lot of people will prefer ultra wide, but it is what it is. I think the camera is okay. I think it's pretty good. I don't want to say it's bad or anything like that, because honestly, it's not bad. I think it is really good. But the biggest problem with it would be, when you have this type of day and age with these type of camera sensors coming out, we have cameras like the Galaxy S20 that pushed out 8K. And before then, we had the Galaxy S10, and I think phones before then, even the Galaxy S9, maybe not the Galaxy S9, but phones were able to shoot 4K at 60 for so many years now, and for some reason, Google chooses not to do that on this one. They choose to still stick with 4K at 30, which, I think a lot of people don't even film at 1080 at 60, and I think a lot of people just tap out at 1080, but that's still a really good thing and cool capability for a phone that is kind of built around its camera. For it to have the bleeding edge of technology and the most capabilities, that would be really awesome, and they really didn't do it here. And that's why I think they're going to do it next year, or this year with the Pixel 5. So in terms of this camera, I think it's good. You guys can see, you have some capability. You have, the stock Google things that come with, the portrait mode, all that stuff. But I think definitely at the end of the day, the camera could have been better on this phone for sure. You have an 8 megapixel wide angle camera up top. I said that's so weird. And that also tops out at 1080p, where other cameras can do 4K 60 on that front camera too. So again, just a slight thing, it's kind of weird, but it is what it is. I'm looking forward to the Pixel 5 for sure. Now this thing has a 2800 milliamp hour battery, which is another reason why, I think this is a really weird thing, because I think the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 2 had bigger batteries than this. I could be wrong, but even that, why didn't they just put a bigger battery in this thing? This thing has wireless charging, which is really nice, but I still think at the end of the day, they could have probably fit a bigger battery in this. And it's not even like it's a super sleek and slim phone. Like, it's like a pretty like average sized phone for the most part. So what else is in here that's requiring that much space? You know what I mean? I feel like they could have put a bigger battery in here. With the Galaxy S10, I feel like that phone is slimmer than this, and that one has a bigger battery than this. So it is what it is. But ultimately, should you pick up the Pixel 4 in 2020? I will say, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing that makes me think this is a bad phone. Like I said, I think it's a pretty good phone. I just don't think it's the best phone for the money currently. And I feel like there's other phones in the marketplace that'll probably do you better than this phone, even though they might not. They might have some quirks too. I think a phone like the OnePlus 7 Pro, that's, I think cheaper than this specific phone on Amazon. And I think that's selling for less than 400. And I think that's a tremendous priced phone. I think, even like the Galaxy S10, I think that's a great phone too. Even though that's not getting software updates, as long as this thing, it's still getting, it's still supported for a while. So I'll go ahead and leave all three of those phones linked down below. So if you want to pick them up from there, you can. But those are really my opinions on the Pixel 4. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.